we dive straight into our last technical session for the day, expert talk across the line. Two gentlemen will be joining virtually. That is Giri Athuluru, co-founder and chief executive officer, Experience Flow, and Dr. Adam Bujak, chief executive officer and co-founder, KYP.ai. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of KYP.ai with over 20 years of professional experience, and Giri, who graduated in 1995 in BTech from IIT Kanpur with a major in metallurgy and material sciences and a minor in finite mathematics. And right here is present Dr. Sanjeev Rastogi, also the moderator for this session. Dr. Sanjeev Rastogi, partner and head, Capability Enhancement Center, Deloitte. It's over to you, Dr. Rastogi.
So good evening. How's the Josh? Looks like there was a lot of energy, passion with Nirupa's session. I'd like to maintain that this topic is new for everybody, including me. So I'm not an expert in Gen AI. But what I like to do is leverage experience of Giri and Dr. Adam. Welcome both of you. It's very early morning for Giri. He's in the West Coast. It's around 6 a.m. So thank you once again for joining. I know you have been traveling. So it's a pleasure having you both here. I think we'll start with a poll question first. Can we run a poll question here? So again, we need to go to menti.com. The code remains the same, 33830947. The question is on the screen. Can we have your responses, please? Wow. So I think we're all leaning towards, I agree, we don't know the difference. To me, AI has been in a place for last so many years. We have been using it. It has impacted our life. It has touched our life. So we need shortcuts, we need virtual assistants. And there's a lot of which is happening in AI. In a Gen AI, of course, let's define AI. It's a machine intelligence which is able to comprehend, learn and perform human tasks, right? And that's Gen AI. But what is different in Gen AI is that it is able to do complex models. Within AI, it was a simpler model in tasks which they were able to do. And we'll have the experts speak about that. I'll run a few slides before I lean on Dr. Adam and Giri for their views. So can I have my deck, please? Yeah, if we can move to the next slide. So So of course, I talked about what it is, right? It's something that machine is able to comprehend, learn, and able to perform complex tasks. And of course, we know how it gets done. This is going to be a reality. And I'm going to ask that because I'm seeing that in my firm, which is because we are engaging with a lot of clients. So this is going to happen. And there are a lot of startups, including Dr. Adams and Giri, who are leaders into this. And that's why we have both of them. And they will talk about some of the use cases, something about myth or reality, and we'll learn from their experiences. Some of the areas which I have seen personally, which is happening around us, and you would notice that is, right, there's a lot of messaging in the segment. There's a lot of intelligence assistance for everyone. We know chats, virtual assistants, and what's happening around us. So, right now, the usage is only in 5 or 6 areas, which is predominantly where I feel content generation, translation, which is NLP, documentation, question answering, personalized avatars, and entity recognition. So these are the areas, I think a lot of progress has happened, and we'll talk about some use cases in these areas as well. Of course, what's going to happen? I think the companies are looking at implementing this in enterprise services in various areas. I've not seen companies coming up with a strategy of Gen AI. There are areas they are looking at implementing it. So, for example, in digitization, 5, 7 years, 10 years back, when we started, companies came together, the CFOs, the CIOs, the COOs came together and had a digitization strategy for the business. But for Gen AI, the same thing has to happen. There has to be a strategy, there has to be identified areas, and there has to be a step-by-step blueprint on how they want to implement. Today, it is areas where we want to implement, could be customer experience, could be content creation, could be training and learning, but it's all spread over. It's not a strategy as such, which we are seeing in the marketplace right now. Of course, it will help create growth, especially in the areas where there is a lot of content creation, a lot of material. So and a lot of people talk about ChatGPT. So we know how quickly and fast we can generate content through the internet. And I think that's where most of the companies have started leveraging it. And that's where I've seen a lot of progress. And of course, the markets. And a lot of customer interactions, customer facing, customer presentations, reaching out to customers will happen through the chat GPT and through the Gen AI. That's what I feel. Of course, this I talked about, and I'll leverage Giri and Dr. Adam for their views on this. One of the major questions is, will it replace humans? I personally feel it will not, because it doesn't have a behavior or emotional connect which is required for a person. But what it will do is, it will create speed, agility, accuracy, and implementation speed, which is required. And I think it will not replace, it will automate, it will drive decisions, it will bring information to the fore, and will help in decision making. That's what I feel. So, in the delivery side, I feel there's a lot which is happening. There's a lot which will happen in service delivery, and we see a lot of this data being used, a lot of this content being created, and it is a target market segmentation which is being done through the Gen AI. And this is continue. I feel we are at an nascent stage, and will take another 3 to 4 years before we know the use cases have worked and people having a strategy to implement this. Of course, there's a lot of buzz around Gen AI, but it comes with inherent risks, and I'll ask the experts on the question. So coming back to Dr. Adam, first to you. My question to you is, briefly we can explain, is this a myth or it's a reality, and have you seen businesses implementing this, or are there any tangible benefits you have seen?
Thank you very much for having me. Hello to everybody in the room. I used to live in Bangalore. That's why my heart is very close, especially warm regards to Nitin and Swami in the audience. Hyper-reality. You know, we have global customers on 5 continents, and when we presented to a global freight and forwarding leader that actually his staff is heavily using ChatGPT, he was quite surprised, right? So most of the companies are already there, at least with the employees, and the question is, can we then have a structural impact that we at the leadership level define as something that is relevant? So coming back to the reality that we see KYPs measuring around the planet what's happening, right? We see, for instance, that employees are trying to compensate their knowledge gaps. Dramatic insights in terms of what can you do better, educating them to do their job well. So from this company, one of the questions was, for instance, can you tell me how do I calculate the first VAT value-added tax in Brazil, right? But there was also a question, how do I quit? And then there was the name of the company. So it's happening, and you know, if you want to look at the data, just to close my statement, in my opinion, banking, high tech, life sciences are among those industries that will experience the largest impact. There is tremendous estimations that are outside in the industry. I think PwC said that it will create a saving of 2.6 trillion annually, right? Outrageously large. The question is, how does it impact our individual lives as leaders, as those that ultimately have to own the P&L and at the end of the year state, yes, it created the impact. That's what we are trying to enable. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Adam. So Giri, you have been a leader and a pioneer. You started AI 5 years back with your company, and you're an expert. So what's your view on, is it really hype, or it has now taken steps to stabilize, and which are the industries you think it is taking lead and some of them are ahead of the curve right now?
Thank you for the question. Hi everyone. My pleasure to be here. Thank you, Ravi, Rakesh, and Anand, to give me this opportunity. So I'll just add on to what Adam has shared on this front. So we've been at it, we've been looking at not generative AI, but things beyond generative AI, what we call as AGI. So we understand under the capabilities of the models that exist right now. And specifically, I think what is being talked about and what Adam is referring to and what Sanjeev is talking about, these are language models. And the answer to the question whether generative AI is a hype or not, the answer is it depends. It depends on the usage. So specifically, if you look at language models under the hood, here are some of the things that we have seen and what we believe is true. So the language model innovation started somewhere around 2017 with the paper from Google called Attention is All You Need. So the critical part of this model is the attention. And this is being equated to understanding that humans gather when they read through documents, they write code, etc. and all stuff. Which is a very powerful concept. I mean, if you can get the understanding, similar understanding as humans, then you are actually on path to become super intelligent. So, however, the current models, at least like, it's very hotly debated whether they have actually reached understanding or not. There is a research firm called Anthropic out of Bay Area, which is a competitor to ChatGPT. They published some results recently. In their results, if you go through it, they talk about this neuron, 83 neuron, which basically, if you look at it under the hood, it has all kinds of things mixed. For example, a Korean language text is mixed with some citation of some publication, etc. and stuff. So the way, at least my view, is that this is basically a compression algorithm, but a very, very powerful tool, nevertheless. So the way we look at this is essentially thinking about what is it useful for. Like Adam is mentioning and Sanjeev is mentioning, these are useful for the tasks where you just need, you're good with 80% reliability. Like for example, programming or writing a text or things like that, which is basically language based. Can you make actually an enterprise decision which basically says, hey, I want to improve my revenue by 5% or reduce my cost by 10%? Absolutely not. And that's why we're building Experience Flow. Experience Flow is the next frontier. We are looking at models that go beyond language models. I think like this is still early days. To me, I think like we should not count out the generative AI for sure, because I think they will continue to improve. There is a lot of research going on. But for mission critical stuff, I would say essentially go in with your eyes open.
Thank you, Giri. Very good insights. So, Dr. Adam, I know you work with a lot of IT companies, and in this forum we have a lot of friends from the GBS, GCC industry and shared services and IT industry. So, with your experience, can you share some light on which are the processes you are seeing AI getting implemented and being picked up first as a easy wins or quick wins? And I think that will be a good insight from you.
Awesome question. Thank you so much. I would like to distinguish between hype and the reality. Yeah, because there's lots of, when you enter, especially the websites of Big Four, strategic consultancies, etc., they have, everybody has 168 cases at least, right? And I tell you how we approach that. Athuluru, who is sitting in the room, is always reminding me. He says, "Yeah, but what it means for the customer, right? How do we create real value?" And I tell you where we currently measure the tangible impact. There is good progress, as I said earlier, on Gen AI in terms of, I'm not a native speaker, for instance. I want to polish my English a little bit, so I can do this, but it's minimal, right? It's a bit of human augmentation with technology. If I am a Boston Consulting Group employee and I need to quickly come up with something I have completely no clue about and sound reasonably, then probably my productivity is going up by 40%, and that was confirmed by Harvard, by MIT in one of their researches, right? But these are extreme cases. What we measure around the globe, for instance, from ChatGPT, is max 12%. Max 12% at this point of time. And maybe, I don't have the right access to all magicians that do it better, but I am still very, very balanced. What we are now entering in is measurements of co-pilot impacts, because the companies are trying to take a decision. Okay, will I buy the 300 licenses, 3,000 licenses? This is multi-million decisions, right? Which we're trying to de-risk. So these are examples that I would say are now very relevant and accessible to everybody, because almost everybody can access ChatGPT. Everybody can ask the boss to activate Copilot. Now, where we see tremendous potential and approaching the market is much more tangible pain points. So when I look, for instance, at supply chain, everywhere where there's lots of manual effort that requires data crawling, like identification, qualification of suppliers, supplier onboarding, right? Then I have a first indications that there is potential for 20 to 30% of productivity increases, right? So again, we are talking about augmentation. In procurement space, RFQs automation, how do I enhance my forecasting, depending obviously on the industry. In the accounting spaces, probably some accountants here, For us, it's, for instance, buying travel validation. So we are rather focusing on real business problems, right? And I did not mention interaction space or marketing that is almost in everybody's mouth. But I believe the challenge here will really not be the great ideas, but how do I hands-on execute? And we all have to start now. If you want to generate results in 5 years that are tangible, you have to take the right decisions, right? And from that perspective, when you look at the abbreviation of my company name, Know Your Potential, right? How do I make sure that I have, first of all, digital course of the data to take data-driven decisions? Back to Giri, right? He says 80% is good enough. For us, it's not good enough, right? You need to be deadly confident that out of your 1,500 employees, there are these 366 that will truly make a difference using this technologies. And then how do I drive the data-driven identification? Do I have the data to generate that? And then validate the impact, because ultimately we can throw millions into it. The question is, did it help to improve the work-life balance of the employees? Or maybe, indeed, you were onboarding the suppliers faster or procuring, making procurement a little bit easier. We know how much procurement officers are suffering at the moment. So we try to make it tangible and there is the whole story, right? Are we talking about significant benefits? I would say most of it at the moment is on paper. There are good outliers that demonstrate some impact, and I think there's no way but to start immediately. The question is how you navigate that, and we'll be discussing that, I'm assuming, in the next question as well.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. So Giri, as you know, a lot of new technologies, and Ravi earlier in the day talked about disruptive, abrupt technologies. So I know I've been part of a lot of shared services where a lot of digitization at the corporate level, at the company level, and at the center level is happening. So how do you marry the Gen AI with this, and how do you prioritize? Because everything requires, bringing new technology, bringing investments and all that, and becomes a challenging situation for a CIO or for a leadership to invest in both. So what's your suggestion, Giri? What should be the priority and how should we go about it? In what sequence?
Good question. So here's how I would advise anybody who's actually seriously contemplating generative AI. Definitely do your research in terms of where it is applicable and where it is not applicable, and what are the limitations. I can state some of the limitations that we know by looking under the hood. So number one, essentially, the model has fundamental flaws. It will hallucinate. So if you actually ask the same question again, it will give you a different answer, most likely, right? The second category of issues is security. So you've got to be very, very careful with the data that you're providing it. Unfortunately, like any of the other models, this particular model, if you provide data and it becomes part of the model, it's very, very hard to take it out. It just stays there. So the data leakage is a significant problem. The third thing is, I think it's, like Adam is saying, it's early days, so people don't understand it very well. The cost of this, applying this at scale in enterprise is going to be very, very huge. And the runtime cost is unpredictable. To give you an example, and this is from one of the key authors of the paper, Attention is All You Need. His name is Jacob. And he is the original inventor of that idea of attention. He was talking about it recently, and his comment on cost was essentially there is no way to solve some of the hard challenges of cost when it comes to these models. To give you an example, like if somebody writes a long text, which could be summarized in just 2 sentences, then if you don't use the shorter summarized version, then you're actually using a lot of cost. Because the system is actually going through all the tokens that are there and all that. So these are some inherent limitations. At the same time, it is a very powerful technology. like Adam is referring to, we use it in two ways. Number one, that our top of the line engineers use it for is actually programming. It speeds up your programming like there is no tomorrow, but you have to be really good at using it as well. You need to know, like, what it is doing right or wrong and test it and stuff like that. Our take on Gen AI, like I was mentioning earlier, is our belief is basically this is not a problem for enterprises, specifically for decision making. However, it has good use cases in terms of interface. So the way we have integrated generative AI into our product is it's actually acting as an interface between our intelligent agents, which are based on reinforcement learning and graph neural networks, and the humans. So it can understand the intent of the human, what does the human want to actually achieve, and it actually can come back with answers. And this use case is, not very threatening or it's not mission critical. However, the best way to me, like anybody who's actually planning to handle, integrate this into their main process or a product, the best way to handle this is to introduce a human in the loop. Especially when, essentially if it is going out of bounds, if you have a way to measure it is going out of bounds. That would be our recommendation.
Thank you, Giri. I think last question, 30-second answer. We'll open questions for our colleagues here and friends here. So, Dr. Adam, there are a lot of ethical risks, business risks. How do you mitigate some of these while you start implementing some of the Gen AI?
Three major points from my side. There's so many publications on it, we're not going to discover it from scratch. I would say number one, use zero or first party data. Meaning this is only your data and at best first source data from your customers. Number two, keep data fresh, right? It's important that you do not build your models that rely on the decisions that were made in the 80s. It has to be near real time, but with significant statistical relevance, right? Not to forget that. And number three, ensure there is human in the loop. I highly recommend to watch a TED Talk of Professor Hee-Jin Choi from the Washington State University. She explains how AI misses the common sense on the human side, right? We need to make sure that we are validating what's happening there, and with these three elements and your beautiful centers of excellence, governance model, and everything that the consulting companies help you with or you come up with, I think we have a chance to move on and create tremendous progress. Because one thing that is unquestionable is we cannot stop this. We have to keep going, and the question is, how do we steer it to success?
Thank you. Very good insights. So, Giri, one question to you. For most of the organizations, since we talked about ethical business risk, things to mitigate, and some of the use cases, what's your advice? Should we go and be the pilot and be the guinea pig to implement some of this? Or should we wait for a couple of years for it to stabilize, have business cases, have use cases for us to then jump into this?
I think I completely agree with what Adam just shared. This is a very powerful technology, and we should not wait, because essentially, obviously, the business is about taking the leadership, being the early adopter, trying it and putting it to use wherever it is applicable. However, I would reiterate some of the points that Adam mentioned. Human in the loop is a must, right? Because essentially, this piece is going to ensure that there is reliability and also there is no true business risk. The other piece is data sanity, right? What are you actually incorporating in it? Old data, stale data, etc. All of that stuff is going to be very problematic. Security, the data leakage is a big issue as well. So here, obviously, there are multiple architectures available. If you send it to an online service like ChatGPT, there are risks. if your requirement is quite small, if you are training it onto your own local documents, local data, there is another option where you can actually run these things on your own servers, in your own installations, because there are open source models that are quite capable as well. The broader question about risk and stuff like that, I think like one of the things that people are talking about is like whether it's going to take over the humanity. When it comes to generative AI, I don't think that would be the case. However, there should be policies in place, and I think like a lot of people are talking about it, which is in the right direction. But I would also caution, like beyond generative AI, there is definitely a risk with some of the advanced models that people are working on, which are not generative AI. And these models, if they can start figuring out essentially how to do complex math, physics, chemistry, etc., the core sciences, then we have definite risks. And I think, like, to me, obviously, when that is going to happen and all that stuff is like, we don't know yet at this point. So we got to press forward with what we have and make sure that we have enough regulatory bodies, enough understanding of these models and things like that. And that's the best way to approach it forward.
So thank you very much. Last couple of questions to our experts. If Atul, you want to ask? Yeah. Anyone? To our guests? Yeah.
Hello everyone. So there was a session earlier in terms of value and technology. So how do we create more value using AI as a technology? So that's the question.
I can go ahead first. So essentially, there are proven use cases like Adam is mentioning, where there is already progress. There are emerging results, not like something that is published and completely reliable at this point, but specifically wherever you are actually seeing traction. Well, for example, the coding example that I talked about, it's extremely proven that we have personally seen as well. So if you can actually take that use case and implement it within your organization along with the human in the loop, I think that's the best way to approach it.
And I will complement it, absolutely agreeing with Giri, saying there's just three things. Show me the dollars, show me the client satisfaction, and demonstrate to me a happy employee that is balanced and does not stay overnight on Friday in the office to complete the work.
Thank you. Last question.
Yeah. So Giri, great seeing you virtually. Look forward to meeting you next time, and Adam, you as well, in this forum. Quick question. Give us some of the aha moments which you have seen from your clients, right? Leveraging, whether it's AI, Gen AI, let's not get into that, but something which you have done for your clients in Experience Flow and KYP. I think that will get some of the thoughts flowing here. Thank you.
Yeah, I came from a company where I was supposed to have always an opinion on something being at the executive level, and already in the first weeks when I started seeing our customers' data and discussing with them, I learned that actually I knew nothing. I really knew nothing. Maybe one aha moment that happened to me already 2.5 years ago was when we were trying to find automation cases in one of the leading sports goods manufacturer in Europe, and there was additional question from the leader of this organization. This team there is somehow not performing, right? They look right, and especially this girl there. There's no value, right? Meaning, every organization tries to create impact, but you're always thinking about performance. And then, even if you try to automate something, there must be something to automate. If there's not much happening, right, you cannot create benefits. And actually, what we started seeing, this was the very first case, that high-performing introverts are globally ignored. right? High-performing introverts. Remember that. They don't tell you that they are great. Usually, you do not see the complexity they are dealing with, and that's what what my major discovery was in this journey: data. Sleep better knowing what you're talking about. And there is, by the way, no AI without data. Right? So our entire discussion is highly theoretical if we do not have the data to take our decisions on. Right? And whether you go left, right, or center, make sure you not only meditate, practice yoga, but you also look at the hardcore information that is near real time and ideally allowing you to take a better decision, and the world will be much better. Thank you for this question.
No, thank you. So, thank you, Giri and Dr. Adam. Wonderful insights. So, let me summarize the conversation we had. One, it is a reality, it's not an hype. It will take few years to mature. It's already started, and in some areas, it's at nascent stage. We need to be mindful of the cost when we implement across the organization. And the fourth thing is, we need to be mindful of mitigating a risk. And as we said, there are inherent risks with data on what we share and how we go about this. So let's be mindful of that. With that, I want to sign off. So thank you very much, everybody, for patiently listening. And I hope you liked the session, and we all got some good insights from two gentlemen as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both panelists who joined virtually. That's Giri Athuluru and Dr. Adam Bujak. And to honor and thank Dr. Sanjeev Rastogi, I'd like to invite Mr. Shwetal Desai, co-founder of Nividus Software Solutions. Now please come up here.